Login.gov is the federal government's latest effort to create an identity management and access control solution. Federal Chief Information Officer Tony Scott told agency leaders what to expect and what to do in a memo about a month ago. Federal News Radio Executive Editor Jason Miller got exclusive details on that memo. Jason, what exactly is the background here? What's the history that the government has with establishing identity management credentials?
Well, Francis, this is about the fourth effort that the government is trying to create, really a platform, a portal, anything to let citizens or businesses or whomever log on to federal executive type of transactions with a username, a password, but beyond that, more secure. If you remember, there's something called the Federal Bridge, then we had e-authentication, then we had connect.gov, now here we are at login.gov. And again, the whole goal is to do it in a way that's secure, easy, and can go across all agencies.
How does this build on some of those other efforts that you just listed, Jason? Is this an evolution or is this a totally new, starting from scratch?
I think that's a fair question, and it's really hard to say if it's going to be an evolution or is 18F coming in from GSA saying, hey, we have the answer this time. We've heard this before, Francis, that many times people say we have the answer, but in fact they didn't, and that's why we're on the fourth iteration. 18F is saying the right things. They're saying we're going to build on what they did with connect.gov. GSA, the Postal Service, had put this in place about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. They're going to say we're going to take the lessons learned from e-authentication, which was done under the Bush administration's e-gov initiative, but we'll see. The proof will be in the pudding, I think.
Tony Scott's probably only going to be the Chief Information Officer for the next 7 or 8 months, though, Jason. What's the timeline for this, and what's the likelihood or possibility that either a Clinton or Trump administration could come along and say, stop this until we figure out how we want to do it?
Well, I'm going to answer your second question first. This is not going to get stopped because it's good government. No one will argue that we don't need a secure transaction online process for people, for citizens, for you, for me, for whomever, to check our Social Security benefits, to log on to the IRS and figure out where our tax refunds are. So that's not going to change no matter who wins the White House. The first part of your question about Tony Scott having about 6-9 months left, that's why this memo specifically is really looking at what can get done between now and October 31st. In fact, agencies and GSA and OMB and NIST have a series of milestones, 18 in all, set up to say, we're going to do these things. Some of them include, for instance, a common technical and user interface component. That's under GSA. A new digital services playbook for identity management. Another way, upgrade to what the famous M0404 memo. Now, Francis, I know you're thinking, what is M0404? But that is e-authentication. My friends like Karen Evans will say, oh, I remember that one. In fact, she probably was the one who helped sign it. So that's part of what's going to happen over this next, 6 or 9 months.
This latest memo that you're reporting on federalnewsradio.com also outlines some of the very high-profile projects 18F will work on, but you're writing about some murkiness here. What is the murkiness about? What don't we know about yet?
So 18F, according to Tony Scott, will work on 3 big projects. The vets.gov, which is the Veterans Affairs Department portal for veterans to come in and get their services. The second one will be the IRS Get Transcript, which was actually just in the news recently about coming back online with more and better security. And then Social Security, likely the My SSA portal. What's going on, the murkiness comes from the fact that the VA just awarded a contract to a company called Ad Hoc LLC. Ad Hoc's teammates include ID.me, which is a identity services company. So specifically, they're building an identity service on top of vets.gov, but now you have 18F going to build that a very similar or something that could be very much the same identity management service on top of it. So how are they working together? It's unclear. The same thing with IRS. They just came out with a new Get Transcript update. They worked with the U.S. Digital Service to build a 2-factor authentication identity management service, but Tony Scott says 18F will work with Get Transcript and the IRS to put on top of it an identity management service. It's just unclear from the memo how that all fits together. Or are we going down the path of these siloed problems, which is what we've seen years of past, where there's never a mandate to say you must do this. It's always please, we'll ask you to, we think it's a good idea, but it's never a you will do this. So I think there's yet some things that still need to be clarified.
Yeah, and you anticipated, Jason, what my next question is about this, because the problem, historically, my understanding understanding is, has been that exact thing. Every agency undertakes these an identity management solution separately. Nobody's working together, and nobody knows what somebody else is doing. Nobody knows whether their solution will work somewhere else. Is that possible here?
I think you're absolutely right, and I think part of the challenge has been over the last 20 years is to get people to move from, hey, I need my own solution, what's the technical architecture, to saying, here's the standard approach, make apps to fit it. In fact, I talked to Dan Terracini from SolPass. He's been in this identity management business for the last 20 years. He's seen a lot of things come and go and change. And he goes, DoD is about the only outlier in this identity management discussion because they actually came up with what they call a public key infrastructure accreditation approach to do one thing, which is to say, this is the way we're going to give people identity management services, and then we're going to build apps around it. And that is the key, he says, build apps around it. And so many times agencies have focused too much on the technical architecture, the technology behind it, and not worried about the really the back end, which is the apps which the citizens use.
Is there any chance or any indication that anybody wants to have DoD lead a discussion on how to do this if they're doing it successfully already?
I think that's a great question in the sense that why not go and learn from other people's mistakes, best practices, and I think that's the big key here. Will 18F look at the past and say, yes, we're not going to make the same mistakes? Because I believe, and we've seen this time and again, Francis, when you don't learn from the past, you repeat those same mistakes. Will they go to DoD? Have they reached out? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to it. I certainly hope they have.
Federal News Radio Executive Editor Jason Miller, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
And don't forget, if you miss an episode of Government Matters, you can find it on our website, govmatters.tv. It's brand new, and you can see Monday's show focused on OPM's response to Metro's SafeTrack, Homeland Security's automated indicator sharing program, and the digital services at the Department of Defense. Back on 1 minute.